Okay, we will move to item 14, a petition to transfer territory from the Glendale Unified School District to the La Cañada Unified School District. Secretary Pratt.
Thank you. So a petition was submitted to transfer the sagebrush area from the Glendale Unified School District to the La Cañada Unified School District. Following public hearings and the commission of the SECRO study, along with the staff feasibility studies, the committee approved the petition at the October 2nd, 2019 meeting. At that meeting, there was no decision reached on the election area map for this petition due to the fact that committee members needed additional information. Staff was tasked with developing additional maps for the committee to consider. Before we hear from Dr. Deegan, we have 10 members of the public that have requested to speak on this item. You're going to have 2 minutes to make your presentation. I'd like to call you up in order that I have them written down here. The first individual, and I'd like to call the first few people so you can state yourself on the lectern. Hector Arias, Mark Evans, Dan Jeffries, and David Haxton. So come forward, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to make the presentation.
Hector Arias is not here.
I'm sorry, who?
Hector Arias.
Oh, no. We don't know the first name.
Can we adjust the time limit then?
No? Okay. So then Mark Evans.
Good morning. My name is Mark Evans. I'm Associate Superintendent of Business and Administrative Services for the La Cañada Unified School District. I'm here this morning to represent the school district and to reiterate its ongoing support to the petitioners in their efforts to transfer to the La Cañada Unified School District. LCUSD finds value in the capacity of the territory transfer to strengthen the ties between the La Cañada city and school communities and the resultant social capital. As LCUSD has mentioned before, the district will be able to maintain class sizes at current levels. No existing resident or permit students will be disrupted. All sagebrush students who desire to remain in the GUSD would be released to do so through the interdistrict permit process, and LCUSD would incur no negative financial impact because we have the flexibility and the capacity to accommodate all students affected by the petition. LCUSD also supports the committee finding that the election area be confined to the boundaries of the territory proposed for transfer, as there is a rational basis and precedent for such a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan Jeffries.
Good morning. My name is Dan Jeffries. I am a La Cañada resident, the father of 5 kids, and a member of the La Cañada Unified School Board. My day job is an attorney, and I'm an attorney as an assistant city attorney for the city of Los Angeles, but I'm not representing the city of Los Angeles or appearing in that capacity. I'm appearing in my own personal capacity this morning. The decision about the voting area should be guided by legal principles and not political issues. There's no property being transferred. There are no new schools being built. And for the Sagebrush residents, this issue is very significant. It could change where they send their kids to school. It could also subject themselves to taxes as imposed by the parcel tax in the city of La Cañada. For any Glendale residents, the impact is tangential and indirect. It is clear that the Sagebrush residents have the most at stake in this decision. So we urge you to follow established legal precedent, the guidance of Education Code Section 35710 et sec, and the legislative intent behind these laws. My fellow resident, Mr. David Haxton, will address those legal issues further. The voters who are directly and significantly impacted by the decision should be the voters who make that decision. This is a very important issue to the residents of Sagebrush and should be decided by those voters. Thank you.
Thank you. David Haxton.
Good morning. My name is David Haxton. I'm a Deputy Attorney General appearing in my personal capacity. And I'm talking about the First Impressions territory transfer that the State Board of Education unanimously reversed a county decision as to the election area, setting the election area for the territory to be transferred only. That was 20 years ago, and I was involved in that case because the chief petitioner was a coworker of mine, and he came and asked for help. And so a month ago, when you made your decision, I saw in the newspaper, I said, that's the exact same issue that they're going to be dealing with. And so I collected information about the First Impressions territory transfer case, and I submitted it to the petitioners. I haven't previously been involved in this at all. And let me first give a little context. It used to be that the election areas were, by default, just the territory transfer, the territory to be transferred. In 1982, the state Supreme Court, in the Fullerton case, found it unconstitutional that the entire district didn't get to vote. And so that changed everything. So the default then became the entire district. But then in 1992, the state Supreme Court, again, in a Sacramento County case involving the formation of a city, Sacramento County complained that they were going to lose a lot of money by the city being formed. The state Supreme Court said, no, it's okay for just the territory to vote. And everybody kind of thought that they were going to lose because of the Fullerton case 10 years ago. But the state Supreme Court said, no, that had to do with race. You know, if race isn't involved, then it's not critical that anybody be voting that the entire district vote.
Thank you. Please conclude your comments.
Okay. In the first impressions case, it was very similar to this. 100 townhomes they wanted to transfer. Everybody opposed it. The committee approved it, but then they set the election area for the entire district that was losing the territory. On appeal, it was reversed. It was just the territory.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Quick question. Are you a resident of the area, or what's your connection?
Yes, I live in La Cañada.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next three speakers, Scott Tracy, Nick Karparchian, and Melanie Lowiski.
Good morning. I'm Scott Tracy. Sincerely thanking you for acknowledging the merits of our petition as your predecessors did in 1979 and again in 91. Your final action is to establish the election area. Today, a court case known as LAFCO, which Mr. Haxton just referred to, provides legal precedence observed by the State Board that elections may be limited to the boundaries of the territory proposed for transfer, known as the default area. And for the last decade, the State Board has uniformly selected the default area as the election area, since none of these concerns was found to be significant. Race, encouraging future piecemeal transfers, effect on voters, and financial impact on districts. So of the 14 appeals heard by the State Board in the last decade, no election area was expanded. And nothing in our petition gives rise to any of those four concerns just mentioned. Your approval of our petition signifies there was no significant concern regarding race or fiscal impact to the districts. There's nothing in our petition promoting future piecemeal transfers, given the relatively small number of students to transfer, LCUSD's commitment to accept all students, being fully within La Cañada city boundaries while being the only section of the city not included in the hometown school district. And Glendale would continue to serve 100% of the residents of the city of Glendale and the unincorporated communities of La Crescenta and Montrose. So that leaves only the impact on the voter. The only voter significantly impacted is the territory voter, who would inherit a $450 parcel tax. If the election area were expanded, non-territory residents could potentially impose a tax on others while not being subject themselves. The California State Board, as the ultimate arbiter, provides you with clear guidance and case history as you determine our election area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick.
Good morning, everybody. First and foremost, I'm one of the chief petitioners. I want to thank all of you for your time and dedication and for staff for the last 3 years. This has been a long process, and we're, I think, at the tail end of it. As Scott mentioned, the CDE and State Board uses a territory as the default election area unless it was not rational to do so because of four possible concerns. Those relate to racial concerns, future encouragement of piecemeal transfers, significant fiscal impact to the districts, and impact on voters. By approving the petition, as Scott mentioned, this committee has already evaluated under the conditions and determined that the first three concerns do not apply to this transfer. The only remaining possible concern would be impact on voters. So in this case, the facts strongly suggest minimal impact on non-territory voters. Over 50% of the students have already moved from GUSD to LCUSD with little or no negative impact to area schools and neighboring communities. Moreover, after a transfer, non-territory property owners will not be subject to any new type of tax. In contrast, territory voters will be much more impacted after a transfer because sagebrush families and children will be the only ones changing school districts. And sagebrush homeowners will be the only ones paying a new tax, the $450 LCUSD parcel tax. Therefore, to expand the election area beyond sagebrush would allow non-territory residents to decide the destiny of sagebrush students and also give them the ability to have a say on taxing others while not being subject to the same tax themselves. We hope this committee finds that the track record of the state board over the last decade to not expand the election area beyond the territory gives you clear direction and guidance on the issue. Based on that and the additional facts presented here, we respectfully ask that you set the territory as the election area since there are no compelling reasons that justify expanding it. Thank you for your time today.
I ask Nadia, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Naomi Lazowitz. I'm a chief petitioner. And another item in our recent petition summary that you have before you, which supports the election area being limited, is this committee's decision in the 2016 Wiseburn Territory Transfer Petition, where this committee voted to designate only the territory as the election area. In Wiseburn, staff cited 3 factors why the election area should be limited. 1, low number of students to transfer, an inherited additional tax on the transfer area, and the full support of the receiving district. Comparing that petition to ours indicates no significant difference between the two. Since those same factors hold true in our petition, the same conclusions should hold true in the election area to be set as the territory itself. And just to summarize it, this committee has determined that this transfer impacts would be less than significant, and with the precedents that have been cited already on the state board level, we ask you to designate the territory as the election area. I also wanted to recognize that on November 4th, 1976, the Sagebrush residents were part of a 72% election that approved the incorporation of our city of La Cañada Flintridge. We have now waited 43 years for the final puzzle of that vote. Some of the people in the audience here voted to incorporate. Once you become a city, it's a little different. And with all due respect to Mr. Ogas, I just wanted to reiterate that our city welcomes us, loves us, reaches out to us, but we don't have a Parks and Recreation department. Our schools in La Cañada is the glue that holds our community together. And this is why the residents have been fighting literally for 40 years to get this done. I appreciate you helping us. Thank you.
The final 3 speakers, Pat Anderson, Martin Kresmer, and Stan. I'm not going to pronounce the last name.
That's why the secretary's doing it, not me.
Good morning. My name is Pat Anderson. I'm the president and CEO of the La Cañada Flintridge Chamber of Commerce. When the 1992 petition for this transfer was before this committee, staff recommended the election area to be limited to the transfer territory itself because a large election area would overwhelm the voters in the transfer area who were directly affected. I compared the registered voter census data in the Crescenta Valley High School attendance area and the La Cañada High School and found the ratio of voters was approximately 2-to-1 over La Cañada, similar to 1992. Since GUSD has not recently made any substantiated claims of significant impacts to its educational programs, much less the likelihood of a school closure, neither the adjacent neighborhoods or the school have been significantly affected. In fact, enrollment at Mountain Avenue Elementary is at a 13-year high this year. That suggests that non-territory residents have only an incidental interest here, which provides rationale to not expand the election area beyond the territory. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Kresmer.
Good morning to the members of the committee and the staff. My name is Martin Kresmer. I'm a resident of the Sagebrush Territory and a taxpayer. The GUSD has asserted that a $4 to $5 annual increase in the tax burden of their taxpayers represents an undue burden upon them. I'd like to make mention of the fact that residents of the Sagebrush territory face an increase in our tax of 100 times that. So in that regard, it seems more reasonable to me that the residents of the Sagebrush territory should have the most say in this regard. Going back to the 1992 petition, the parcel tax was not in effect. So it really wasn't in part of consideration in the decision that was made. Yet, staff during that time had recommended that the election consists of only the transfer area. Residents of the transfer area be part of that election. Now that there is a tax in place, it seems more reasonable to follow staff's prior recommendations. I can tell you that by not expanding the election area, what you're going to avoid is the conundrum of determining what is equal representation of voters when the tax itself wouldn't be equally applied. Lastly, I can say that Sagebrush residents would be the most impacted by the outcome of this election and should therefore have the strongest voice in that election. So members of the committee, I urge you to limit the election area to the Sagebrush territory, and I'd like to thank you and the staff members for their time.
Thank you. Thank you. Final speaker is Stan.
Good morning, committee members. Stan Barankowitz, attorney for Glendale Unified School District. As a procedural matter, we would request that this committee withhold and not act upon this item because pursuant to Education Code Section 35710.5b, I quote, upon the filing of the notice of appeal, the action of the county committee shall be stayed pending the outcome of the appeal, end quote. The district filed its notice of appeal on October 31st, and you should have a copy of that document. As a result, these proceedings should be stayed in accordance with law and in accordance with the county committee's own policies under paragraph 7B. If the committee continues to consider the election area, we would like to renew our claims and our position in our February 24th 2017 letter on the election area, and also to point out that the election area should include the entirety of Glendale because they will be impacted by absorbing the additional bond debt that the territory would shed. And as petitioners point out, that it is unfair where one voter can impose a new tax on another without being subject to it themselves. If you do not include the Glendale constituents in this, you have the territory residents determining the fate and the tax burden of the rest of Glendale constituency. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Secretary Captain, would you address what staff has presented to us? Or sorry, we turn this over to Allison.
Turn it over to Allison for the discussion on the map request. Dr. D. Sorry.
Thank you. At the October 2nd, 2019 meeting, the committee requested that a map be developed that reflected the La Cañada USD territory, the petition area, and the attendance area for the Crescenta Valley High School. We received this map developed by the registrar recorder for us on Friday, so that's why you got it late in your packet. We were waiting for this map until we finally got it. But prior to, we sent you a series of other maps reflecting one by one the criteria that were discussed, such as the La Cañada USD territory, the Glendale USD territory, the petition area. There was a mention of trustee areas. Trustee areas did not become a factor because all of the territory in Glendale, the petition area, and the high school district all fall in one trustee area. There was a request for voting precincts, and those are not a factor because wherever the line lead falls, it's going to have voting precincts in that. Nobody would make a division on voting precincts in this kind of a case. But nevertheless, I think Eric can scroll through some of the other maps if you want to see them one by one. You have them in your packet. But in your extra packet, you have the registrar's final map that they developed for us, and that's the one that includes the La Cañada district, the high school attendance area, and the petition area. So the committee can go through its discussion on how to set the election area in whatever manner it wants, including reconsidering. The original recommendation was the entirety of both districts, given staff determination that there would be a significant impact on both districts. That was discussed and rejected as a criteria, but it's your map to make. There certainly is a state default to the petition area, but there's deviations from that historically. So it will be reviewed by the State Board of Ed since we have a notice of appeal filed. So that's now for your discussion to make. And if you want a particular map up on the screen, just ask Eric and we'll pull that up. Those are the maps we have.
I tend to like motions before we discuss the actual item, but are there any questions committee members have before we put a motion on the table? Yes, Mr. Bostrom.
Something we have council today. It's been raised by council that when notice of appeal is filed, even though the second half of our action hasn't been completed, it is to be stayed until the appeal reaches its completion. In your opinion?
In my opinion, the notice of appeal that has been filed is premature. It's not yet right for appeal. The notice of appeal may be filed once the committee has reached its final action in the matter, and the final action in this matter will be a second determination on the voting districts, upon which the notice of determination is issued, and then they can then proceed to the State Board. The State Board has shares our analysis of this. They also feel this is not yet right.
Thank you. Given that, it was interesting to read a lot of the legal backup here and the history. And from where I sit, there's like two actions. One was we approved just the boundaries of the area itself. And if that motion fails, then the next move would be to increase the area to whatever the board finds. So I think I'll make the motion that we limit it just to the area that's affected.
I'm sorry,
Clarify the motion. The motion is that the electoral area be just that.
Petition area.
Just
petition area.
The motion is for the election area just to be the petition area. Is there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Edmondson. Any discussion?
So just to clarify, staff's original recommendation was that both districts be included in the election. And is staff, given the action at the last meeting, still recommending that?
Yes.
And then we understand that the appeal from our legal counsel, because we did not finish our actions, you're agreeing that we can still move forward with the motion. We don't need to have this item stay until the appeal.
I agree that we can move forward with this, and it is also important to note that the standard of review on the appeal is for issues of noncompliance. So if the Glendale Unified School District felt that this was a matter of noncompliance, they could have this as a second issue as their appeal. They would suffer no prejudice.
The election area can also be appealed by any.
And I think there's one clarification there. Last meeting, there was instructions to staff to come back with a map given our concerns.
That's this map up there right now.
But we're still free to choose either way.
Any other comments on the motion on the table?
So the reasoning for this motion is that you want us to if we're not in favor of just that area, and the side space area being the election, could go ahead and state it right off of that.
Yeah, I think it's important to be on the record.
Okay, thank you.
That would be a no vote.
Yeah.
I'm actually a quite close call for me, but I'm not in favor of the election area just being the petition area. Immediately, I see impacts on the La Cañada Flint School District, and it's Our process is to follow a set of criteria, but then put the decision back to the voting population. It's clear to me that there are some impacts, educational, on Lafayette Flint Ridge. I took at face value and actually believe that the current board believes that no more housing or a building would be necessary to absorb the petition area, but I don't know if that's the case in the future, and future boards in Lafayette Flint Ridge may feel differently. So a priori, I see an impact on Lafayette Flint Ridge, so I think they need to be involved in the voting area, and so I will be voting no on this motion. Any other comments? Call the question, please. Roll call.
Roll call. Andriachi? Yes. Wostrom?
Yes.
Edmiston?
Sorry, I'm sorry. What are we voting for?
The petition area only be the election area. So
Okay.
Okay, please start again. Okay, I'll start again. Andriachi? Yes. Wostrom?
Yes.
Edmiston?
Yes.
Moore?
No.
Nunez?
No.
Ogas?
No.
Wilmer?
No.
Motion failed. Motion failed.
Motion fails. Do I have an alternative motion?
I'm going to have both districts included in the voting area.
Both districts in their entirety?
Yes. Second.
Is there a second? The motion will fail if there's no second. Is there a second? Motion fails. Is there another motion on the table?
I move that we use the this map, or what do we call it?
Combination map or custom map.
The map with the full district.
Lafayette District, petition area, and the attendance area of the Glendale Crescenta Valley High School.
That's that map. That's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion and second.
They haven't said
I think this deserves some discussion.
population.
Please, it's up to us now. Thank you. Motion, would you like to discuss this?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it does this transfer affects both districts economically quite a bit, whether it be one way or the other. So I think it's important that, although I think it is important to fix something that was done, and obviously I that fixed something that should have been done at when they first did the map for this district, when the district was
1880.
They should have looked at that area along the wash and gone all the way to that area. But they didn't for some reason or another. And what I think it's important now that we should be able to fix it. But at the same time, we have to realize that there's a problem because of all these years of everything that's been going on both districts. That we need to have a fair election area that's fair to La Cañadas and to the Glendale at the same time.
Any other discussion from committee members? Yes. Mr. Wallstrom.
The original discussion came up now, the issue was that you'd have a proportionate area and a number of voters on both sides of the line so that the election would be fair. And so when I look at this map that is presented to us, I think it's a little bit beyond fair. If we're going to include both sides, it should be a little more equitable, I think, which means that something should shrink a little bit.
In what area do you propose to be shrinking?
That's your idea, so.
Yeah, I think that this is the basic area of the high school, of the high school in which these areas are mostly going to be affected.
Okay, let's take the high school, for example. How many students go to that high school, and if it's like 2% of the high school, we're including the whole high school district as a voting area, but only 2% of the student population, and I'm just using that as a reference number, is affected. So then I would ask, is that fair?
I'm not sure the question is fair. I'm not sure that question is fair to say.
Well, who's going to vote?
I think that we need to have an area that are comparable. Because the fact, if we just went ahead and did the Sagefront area, okay, that's not fair to both sides. And then if we look at both districts, well, the Glendale district is so much larger than La Crescenta district.
I'm not arguing. I'm coming down to, we're taking the entire high school district boundaries and all the registered voters within that boundary.
Close to it, yes.
Okay, close. But I'm saying if 2% of people from your side of the line go to that high school, you're taking 80% of that district is going to have a right to vote. That doesn't seem proportionally fair. If 2% of the people that are eligible to vote in the high school district are voting on the district, then I would say it's not proportionally fair.
Let me ask, let me take a little privilege here. Dr. Deegan, how many voters in La Cañada Flintridge and how many voters in the high school area?
I don't have that information.
Okay. I should have asked before.
But
I think there's a conflation going on between students attending school and people who live in a certain polygon. They're not overlapping, right? So the attendance area of the high school, as I said in the last meeting, is a district-developed polygon. It's not an official area. And we have, well certainly the quality of the high school and students that prefer to attend La Cañada High School, whatever those issues have come up regarding the high school. We haven't been presented with the high school attendance area as a discrete community. And we haven't been presented with an impact on that high school in particular if the district goes through. So that's now a polygon you've added, shape you've added to this map, but we don't have underlying demographic information about it. We would have to hire a demographer to get that information. So that's why we defaulted to 2 school districts, thinking the petition area was too small. And if you think the impact will be on the Glendale district, I think it would be mistaken to think it will only impact the high school attendance area residents of Glendale. Because if we're talking about taxation, we're talking about parcel tax, we're talking about assessed valuation and things like that.
Yeah, I don't pretend that only helps. That only hurts or helps the high school area. But Glendale as a whole would be impacted, as well as La Crescenta as a whole. The problem is trying to make it a little more equal for them to have the ability to straighten out this sagebrush area. Whatever. If it doesn't happen, whether we don't do it or whether the state board denies it, it's going to come back again. So this is why I'm trying to see if we can get an area that makes sense. To me, it makes sense. Maybe not to you.
No, it's not about making sense or not. It's about what underlying information about these now unique shapes that you're drawing do you need to make your decision. The petition area is defined. The school districts are defined. This combination is not defined, so there's a lack of information that you may need.
So, is there urgency to make this decision today? Because don't have anything to really base a decision on, given especially what you just said with this new map that we're looking at for a voting area. That's why my motion was to look at the districts as a whole together, because I do believe that both districts, I know that both districts will be impacted, and to try and find a little area within a district to balance it. I get that. I understand the effort, and I think it's a valiant effort. But, it's just drawing. And it doesn't show really what the impacts would be district-wide. So, for me, I need to have more information about what this really represents. Is there an urgency today that we have to take action?
We are still in the 120-day review period. After the committee adopted the sequel, we went back on the regular school district organization review period. So we've been under review of the petition for approximately 30 days. So there is additional time. There's certainly urgency in the community to move this forward. We told when one of the parties wants to file an appeal, the petitioners have 5 days after final decision to notify us if they want to file an appeal, and then additional time to give us the materials. School districts have 30 days. So we are tolling that when this process is complete, but the Glendale USD has already told the process on its own. It's filed its notice of appeal. So it will be appealed. What calendar the State Board of Ed uses and when it recognizes that the appeal began, it's going to be up to them. We view the petition as still open and under review in that 120-day window. So we definitely have time. We have the holidays coming in, so our time to set that the next meeting becomes limited. So that's just a concern. And we will not be able to develop, if you want information about this map, you're going to have to tell us specifically this map that we have right now. Here are the 5, 6, 7 things we want to know about this map and this population and underlying demographics. If you want other iterations of other maps, we can develop them, but we have to be specifically tasked and say, I'd like to see a map with this, I'd like to see a map with that, and we can develop a set of maps for you under the guidance of the demographer. But we're beyond our ability to create a map.
I too assumed that we would be getting more information in the map, particularly the number of voters who are involved. I agree that both districts are affected, and in the ideal world, I think that we're trying to create, I think we need some voters from both districts to be involved. I like the idea of the high school attendance district, primarily because we did this once before. We did this with the city of Carson, and it was clear in that situation that if we tried to involve all of LA Unified in the city of Carson reorganizing, there was never a chance. There was never a chance for a local decision. But we also didn't feel that it should only be the city of Carson because a larger area of LA Unified was impacted. So I still find myself in favor of Mr. Nunez's proposal, but I think we need more information.
So can you articulate what that information would be?
I would table. I think it's important to get the numbers so we can. I would withdraw my motion. Okay. And second is also.
And tell us which numbers.
And then I would look at as a committee to say what numbers we need to look at. Okay.
At a minimum, I think we.
With this polygon.
Right. At a minimum, I think we would like. This map. I think at a minimum. Can you give me a moment, please, here? We have the number of voters in La Cañada. We have the number of voters in Sagebrush. At a minimum, I think we need the number of voters in
registered voters within that polygon of the
yes. Okay. Is there other information that the committee would find useful to help making this decision? And I would argue you can do it now, or maybe you can present it to staff within the next couple of days. Mr.
I think you have to also look at things geographically, because you've got the affected area, and then it's how much outside of that affected area you're looking at, and where those precincts are. Otherwise, you're getting somebody 100 miles away that's voting.
Well, no, because we have we have the high school attendance area.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then we can divide the voting territories that breaks up precincts. So we can define the voting area that just includes.
Yeah. You don't have that map geographically showing, it's hard to make that kind of. Okay, let's say your high school is here, let's say it's 50 miles over here, and you take that whole attendance here, this guy over here is voting.
Well, Running's 50 miles.
Mr. Boston, we have that map in front of us. What further information would you like to have?
At some point, you have to take the geographic area and put concentric rings out there and say, 5 miles, 5 miles, 5 miles, and then show the voting precincts within that in the affected areas that you want.
I think it's important that we stay within the precincts that are in this map.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say one thing about 1992? Just to give you information, I'm not going to debate.
Sorry, no. You can submit. It looks like we're going to table this, is my guess, and you can submit some more information.
No, for you to get information, because in 92 what they did was the elementary school areas were what they did, the two elementary schools.
You're not helping your cause.
So if you want an extension or a contraction of the Glendale portion beyond the petition area, you have to describe that polygon, because we have to translate it to a demographer.
I would like to stay within that high school.
Okay, you would, but does anyone else want?
I'm okay with staying up there.
Okay. So you want registered voters within the totality and with each slice of the polygon. Lafayette USD, petition area, and this attendance area from Leonard.
Correct. Mr. Evans?
Are we understanding that the high school area from one area is the equivalent of the high school area from the other area?
No,
No.
different sizes.
Because they're different size high schools.
Oh.
And different size districts.
But that brings up an interesting argument, because one high school is affected, the other high school is also affected, but it's okay for one high school district to vote, but not the other.
Well, you're saying you're including all of the La Piñata High School because all of the La Piñata district is in this polygon.
They only have one high school.
So you're saying that you're going to get both La Piñata and Glendale.
That's this map is all of La Piñata USD, the petition area, and the Glendale, the Santa Valley High School attendance area. Those are the three sections. So all of La Piñata attending high school is already in there.
That's the pink.
Correct, on the right. And actually the district goes much further out to the right there, but it's all the uninhabited area. They have a giant forest portion.
And just to be clear, Mr. Nunez, at the last meeting, you had also asked for voting precincts, which are reflected. That is all the voting precincts which interact with high school attendance area and Sagebrush. And as well, that's all within trustee area 1 of Glendale, which you had also brought up. So all that's been provided on the map looking at.
Which means it'll be fairly easy to get the numbers then.
Again, if the map gets beyond some information on this presentation, like I said, we'll have to get demographic assistance. I believe from the registrar we can get that information as long as all I'm going to be asking is registered voters in the high school attendance area.
Yes.
Because
but not necessarily constrained by precinct.
No, well, I mean, that's all they can report. And they report when the line cuts the precinct, they show it to you, because they know these are unique polygons. These aren't official polygons yet. Okay. It's not a city, it's not a school district. So they show
I don't necessarily want to incur a cost here, but no, just let me finish. But we do not have to constrain ourselves by precincts. Does that mean we would have to hire a demographer to get those numbers for us?
Yes.
Do we know what sort of a cost that would be?
I do not know.
Okay. I suspect we need to hire a demographer.
That would only impact the ones that are on the south.
Yeah, the ones that are near whatever this boundary. Because remember, the high school attendance area is a district-created boundary. Right. So it's impervious to voting blocks. That's why that potential could come up. In a more standard polygon, we don't have an issue.
We should make it the existing high school area.
Right, it could change, changes every year. Right.
over the next week all of a sudden.
I think that's an important point. It is
They certainly do change.
as submitted by staff to us in our packet.
We'll freeze it on this.
Mr. Wallstrom?
Yeah.
Having been through this once before with 3 cities, it was the smallest city that outvoted the other 2. The city I was in had 3 times the voter eligible. So if you don't look at the voting history that goes along with eligible voters as part of this package, you suddenly find that by adding the territory, if the other side's got an 80% turnout all the time consistently over 3 years, they're going to gun you down.
I think
you got no chance.
Well, I don't think you can develop an election area gaming who will vote more and who will vote what down. You have to develop it based on the criteria you want to examine.
You look at the history of it.
Well, and the ways to read our data.
I
The way that we get the data, we'll slice it.
Yeah, but if the data isn't collected here, then we have to ask for it again. All I'm saying is if you're going to bring the precinct data there, also bring a history of the voter turnout. So
History of.
So let me rephrase this. I don't think I agree with Mr. Bostром's concern, but I think I understand what he wants, and so he would, in addition to the voting population, I think he would like some idea of how many people vote in a particular election.
Within the high school attendance area?
In the area that you're going to propose.
And that we can do precinct by precinct. Not something I think is germane, but I think it's
I disagree.
But I think you're entitled to the information.
Any other information about these 3 polygons that we can seek out?
I just have one more comment to make for you. Given that the former chair of the county committee is still serving up in Sacramento, this discussion you're having at the heart of it is also a bill he drafted in 2018. It's Senate Bill 1018. And that does dictate that after the census, a redistricting commission will be working on altering the numbers in the precincts. And so if the numbers that your committee finally votes on, whatever they arrive at, within the queue, after they adjust boundaries, those numbers will be shifting somewhat. And there will be voters from the districting commission in Glendale and La Cunada, which will be serving. So just to be aware that the numbers that you are given, if you see them shift, that's part of the process, they will shift.
Any other comments from the committee?
So can I just reiterate?
Yes.
With this map, with these 3 distinct polygons, what we are going to gather is registered voters in combination, total, and in each of the 3. And then an election history of voter turnout, if possible, in these 3 polygons, and then in the combined area. And then I don't understand the precinct request.
Oh, I just, if you're, I think it's relatively easy to get a voting history by precinct.
Voting history by precinct.
And so we would know the number of precincts. Well, we know the number of precincts in each area, but there could be a precinct that's only sort of 5% in the high school attendance area, and at least my presumption is that we would not involve that whole precinct. The boundary for this election would be exactly the high school attendance.
So do you want, would it be helpful?
Well, I'm just finished. So I just, if you look at the precincts that are involved in these maps and get a voting history for those precincts, I think that provides the information that Mr. Bostrom needs.
My question is, would it be helpful to have that voting pattern precinct and, number of registered voters in all of Glendale so that when you review this map next time, you have the ability to add to that polygon? No?
I'm never adverse to more information.
I'm just saying because, well, what's this area over here? Now we don't have that information outside of
that area's got that area. If you add another area, if you add the whole history of Glendale, you find an area that's outside of this area, then that's not prevalent to what.
Well, I'm just saying I don't know if you wanted to add a little bit if we don't have the information.
Let me just suggest, I think that makes staff's job easier why don't you just get us the voting history of La Cañada and Glendale by precinct, okay, and we can work out how we choose to use that information.
By precincts in this area.
Well, let's go with Glendale.
Just to have all the information.
We can choose what we wish. I'm just trying to make the job a little bit easier, and we can choose what information we choose to bring into the decision. Does that work for the committee?
Yeah. And we will have this as well as.
Exactly.
Is there a motion on the floor? The motion is withdrawn. Do we need a motion to table? That's a motion.
So there is no motion.
There's no obligation to make a decision.
We don't need to. Mr. Saldana, we don't need to table, do we?
No, you just
Continue. Okay. I thank everybody's consideration. Let me catch up on you again.
I have a question to the attorney from Glendale. You have already stated that you're going to appeal and that you will file a statement of reasons and factual evidence for appeal within 15 days of October the 31st. Today is the 6th, and 9 days left. Are you going to appeal?
That is correct. That is correct. We will be filing the statement of reasons and factual evidence.
Okay. Do you have the reasons and the factual evidence?
Yes, we do.
It's right here.
All right, thank you.
And as I stated, we feel the appeal is not right yet. We are not concluded our process. We have not reached the final decision.
All right, and that's been shared with Lucky.
Absolutely.
Make sure we're all good.
Appreciate everybody's concern on this. We are now at item 15, update on review of county committee policies.